I came to Owasso College in Owasso, Michigan from Huntington, West Virginia, where my father was a pastor, and he encouraged me to go to our college in Owasso. And so that was in 1957. And Millie, you came from?
A little town called North Branch, Michigan.
And we both came to the college, and it was small, so we got to know a lot of the students.
Yeah.
And I had my eye on her. I saw this pretty girl right from the first 2 or 3 days of school, and I guess we met doing dishes in the dining hall. And then after that, we both played trombones. And we joined the band, and here I was sitting right beside her in the band. And I thought, boy, this is really the way the Lord's working this out. And so we got acquainted. I carried her trombone home the first day, or back to the dorm the first day. And then in the spring, we went on choir tour.
We were both in the choir, yes.
And I asked her to marry me. During choir tour.
On the bus.
And back in those days, again, we didn't give rings. So I gave her a watch for her engagement present. And she said yes. And one of my stipulations for a wife was that she could play the piano. And she was very good at that. And so we just started our life then and got married July 19th. And that was the beginning of our lives together.
52 years ago.
On a Sunday, I came to church and laid my Bible on the seat next to me. And unknowing to me, he was right behind me. He saw my name on my Bible. So that's how he knew who I was. And his sister had told him about me, too. And so we met after church then, and he came to youth group that night and started hanging around with a big group of us. There were probably about 6 or 8 of us in a group that we always hung around together and did things together. And one night we went to the beach, and he chased me down the beach until I finally let him catch me. And then he asked me to go out, and then we had our first date, and I came home and I said, I don't care if I ever go with him again. But I thought, well, he asked me again, and I thought I'll give him one more chance. So I let him take me out again, and we went out several times after that. It took him about 6 weeks before he finally got up enough nerve to kiss me, because he was very shy.
Very shy.
And then he just gave me a little peck on the cheek, and they turned around and ran. And I went in the house and closed the door and laughed. And so, but we kept going together. And then one night he asked me, he said something to me about a question. And I said, well, I don't know. I said, well, what do you want me to do about that? And he said, marry me. And I said, oh, okay. And then it was tulip time of 1957, and we were at his sister's house. We were sitting on the couch in the living room, and he gave me my diamond. And then it was about just not quite a year we were engaged. And
April 5, 1958.
Right, that's when we were married, and the rest is history, 52 years ago.
When I got out of the military in 1961, I felt God's call to the ministry. And through a series of events, I ended up at Owasso College in Owasso, Michigan, and studied for the ministry. And while there, of course, I wanted to get involved in social life. And one day I saw this young lady coming up the hill carrying some white shirts.
And I was a senior and he was a freshman.
Yeah. And she gave them to my roommate, so I turned to him and I said, "Who's that?" And he said, a friend of mine. So I said, well, I'm going to find out who she is.
He was my best friend.
And so I finally found out who she was, and we were having a hayride coming up for the activity for the college, and I thought, well, I'll ask her if she'll go on a hayride with me. It seemed like much of a date, but I'll ask her, and she accepted.
I took off work for that, as I remember.
So we enjoyed that night. Then in February of '62, I took her to Grand Rapids to my home to meet my family. And while we were there, I asked her if she'd marry me. And she said yes. So then we were looking at what we were going to get for engagement. We couldn't wear a ring. So I asked her if she would like a nice set of silverware.
Meanwhile, remember, we worked in a church out in the country there with a pastor during all those engagement years, and many a times had to kind of sneak off campus because we weren't allowed to leave the campus together, so we would go off campus, walk a block, and I'd pick you up or you'd pick me up, and we'd go out to church and work for
Right.
the Sunday.
Many fond memories of working together, even in our engagement at this church, this pioneer work. And we really found that we felt it was God's will for us to be husband and wife. And so in July of 1962, we got married at her home church in North Branch. And we've been married for almost 48 years now.
48 good years.
I was with a bunch of girls one night, and he was with a bunch of guys, and we happened to park next to each other at the drive-in restaurant of Russ's on the east side of Holland. And I was parked right next to him, and he said, he asked me my name,
And you said,
Effie McGillicuddy.
and I thought, anybody that would tell that big a lie, I want to get acquainted with. So there was a fellow in my car, who she went to school with and knew her, and he says, follow her home. So I did, got a date with her, and it was to go to Fricano's in Grand Haven. Found out that they served alcohol, and with my strict upbringing, I wouldn't go. So we went to a more spiritual place. We went to the Marne stock car races.
And I'd never been to a place like that.
So that was the beginning. Dated for 6 months, and
You gave me a diamond.
6 months more,
We were married.
and she proposed to me, and I said, no, when I want to get married, I'll do the proposing. Will you marry
He
me?
did, really.
So that's been 51 years ago.